Shalom, this is Matt Mansell 89. In this video we'll cover a logical evidence or logical proof that Yeshua or Jesus is not the Almighty, is not God. By not being God, we mean ontologically speaking. We'll first go over the argument, and then I will demonstrate the argument as being true. Premise 1, there is but one God. Premise 2, God just as the Father. Premise 3, for any X that is God, X just is the Father. Premise 4, Jesus or Yeshua is not the Father. Conclusion, Jesus is not God. Premise 1, there is but one God. We know this is true because in 1 Corinthians 8:4, we read, therefore concerning the eating of all of the things sacrificed to idols, we know that there is no such thing as an idol in the world, and that there is no God but one. Premise 2, God just as the Father, 1 Corinthians 8:6. A. Yet for us there is but one God, the Father, from whom are all things, and we exist for him. Premise 3, for any X that is God, X just is the Father. This can be demonstrated through an argument as follows. Premise 1, there is only one God. Premise 2, the one God is the Father. Therefore, the conclusion is therefore anything that is not the Father is not God. So the conclusion, or premise 3 is the conclusion of the deductive argument from premises 1 and 2. Premise 4, Jesus is not the Father. This can be demonstrated using two passages. The first one is 1 Corinthians 8:6 as a whole. Unto us there is but one God, the Father, from whom are all things, and we through him are for him, and one Lord, Yeshua the Messiah, through whom are all things, and we exist through him. So here we have the Father and Jesus or Yeshua being shown in the same passage, distinct from each other, and we know this because actions are the actions that they are involved with are presented differently. All things exist from or come from the Father, but via through the Son or through Yeshua, and we, the disciples, exist for God through the Messiah. But if this doesn't convince you, John 8:15 to 18 reads, for even if I do judge, my judgment is true, for I am not alone in it, aka in it being I'm not alone in judgment, but I and the Father who sent me, meaning I judge and the Father who sent me judges. Even in your law, it has been written that the testimony of two men or two witnesses or two persons, depending upon the translation you are using, is true. That the testimony of two men is true. I am he who testifies about myself, and the Father who has sent me testifies about me. Or some translations, I am one who testifies, and my Father is another. So here it is clear that we're talking about two distinct persons, distinct beings, and not just modes of existence of one person. I'm not talking about hypothetical union, but rather clearly two distinct persons, as evidenced from verse 16. Two persons or two witnesses are required for judgment to be true. The Father Jesus is one witness, and the Father is another witness. And the two together establish a witness or judgment against, in particular, the people. The conclusion, therefore, Jesus is not God. This is demonstrated through an argument from premise 3 and premise 4. Premise 3, if any x that is God, x just as the Father, or conversely stated, for any x that is not the Father, x is not God. Premise 4, Jesus is not the Father, therefore Jesus is not God. To recap, premise 1, there is but one God, 1 Corinthians 8:4. Premise 2, God just as the Father, 1 Corinthians 8:6a. Premise 3, any x that is God, x just as the Father. And from this argument and conclusion from premise 1 and 2. Premise 4, Jesus is not the Father, John 8:15-19. Conclusion, Jesus is not God. This is deduced from premise 3 and 4. Shalom Aleichem.